On the morning of April 9, 1994, 2 Presidential Guard soldiers and 2 gendarmes entered the local Polish Pallottine mission church in Gikondo, in Kigali, the capital of Rwanda. They started checking the identity cards of the people in the church. They ordered the few people who were Hutu to leave the church. One of the priests protested that all the people inside were Christian worshippers, and were all members of the Pallottine congregation, but was told by the gendarmes that the church was harboring inenzi, or cockroaches. The gendarmes continued to examine identity cards. A Presidential Guard officer then entered the church, telling soldiers not to waste their bullets since the Interahamwe militia would soon arrive with machetes. Shortly after, 100 Interahamwe militiamen came into the church and began to kill people, bashing with their clubs and slashing with machetes, hacking the arms, legs, genitals and the faces of the congregation who tried to protect the children under the pews. Some were dragged outside the church and killed in the courtyard. The killings continued for 2 hours, and afterwards, the whole compound was searched, with the militia leaving the compound shortly after. There were 2 unarmed Polish UN observers in the church, Majors Jerzy Moczka and Ryszard Tutsi, who were supervising the implementation of the Arusha Accords signed on August 4, 1993, on behalf of the United Nations Assistance Mission for Rwanda, or UNAMIR. When the attack began, Major Jerzy Moczka was in a garden near the church and tried to contact the UNAMIR headquarters in Kigali in order to direct Belgian or Bangladeshi operational units to the church. Initially, all Motorola system channels were jammed with other calls for help. Eventually, he managed to pass the report about the murders to UNAMIR duty officer, Captain Godson Zawalnogo. But, Captain Zawalnogo argued that he had been informed about many other similar events in the capital, and that direct intervention of UN forces in all these places was impossible. The major also tried to contact a duty officer of the predominantly Tutsi Rwandan Patriotic Front stationed in Kigali. The 2 Polish officers, along with the Pallottine priests and nuns, began immediate first aid on the heavily wounded, separating them from the dead, who were buried in 2 mass graves dug by Pallottine workers. The task was very urgent due to the heat which would have accelerated the process of decomposition of the corpses. The wounded were carried back to the church, where nuns gave them water. On Major Moczka's instructions, the priests collected the half-burned identity cards of the dead, so they could be used to identify the corpses. Moczka also took pictures documenting the massacre. On the afternoon of April 9, 2 International Red Cross ambulances with French medical teams and the Chief International Committee of the Red Cross delegate in Rwanda, Swiss Philippe Gaillard, arrived. At the request of the 2 Polish army officers, 2 seriously injured Rwandans were taken to hospital. They are believed to be the only Rwandans who survived the massacre. That same afternoon a UNAMIR armored carrier arrived with Canadian Major Brent Beardsley and 2 other Polish army officers, Major Mayer Pajic, and Major Stefan Sztek, who filmed the aftermath of the massacre. Another massacre took place a few days later in a private Pallottine chapel, next to the church. About 11 Tutsi Rwandans, including children who managed to survive the first massacre, took refuge in the chapel, where Polish Pallottine fathers at Iswaf gave them enough supplies necessary to survive until things calmed down. When the Interahamwe militia discovered there were survivors in the chapel, they burned it down, and nobody survived. The Gikondo Massacre is now under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda.